Hey, welcome back. You are inside the Culture Divide Experiment. We are here with Justin, who is going to explain to us who he is and what he does here at the Fort, also known as the Village, also known as a community. So break it down for us, Justin, for his Mothers and Sons event.
So I am the Community Schools Director here at Fort Worthington Elementary Middle School. So my main job and responsibility is to be the bridge for the community to the school and for the school to the community. So my job is to build partnerships, bring in resources to the students and parents, and also to bring in resources for the community. So as things such as the food pantry, to job readiness, to we have GED program, start up here in 2 weeks for the community. So it's the full gamut, really just making this a hub for the community, not just a school.
I like that. I like that. Now, when you say a hub, and because our earlier interview, we talked about a community and how at one point we were raised in the community. So that, what other resources, or you came to this with a different mindset, I'm sure.
Yeah.
So tell us what was your thoughts behind it?
I came to this event,
or to this not this event, but just what you do.
Yeah.
Because as a bridge, you have to look at things that are a little bit differently.
Yeah.
It's not just about, all right, check here, check here. You want to
definitely. It's definitely looking at things from the perspective of holistically. And so with even this event, looking at the family structure and the core, and especially in the African American community, the core is the family, and making sure the core is strong. And when the African American community has broken down is when the core has broken down. So it's all about building that core back up to be that strong, vital source for the community. And so this event just speaks to building that core back up, and especially with our young men and everything going on, and especially our city with the violence and a lot of it stemming from our young men. This is one of that relationship gap that we need to close. Is between the mothers and the sons, and then the next gap is between not only the mothers and the sons, but the sons and the fathers, was also a very critical point.
Indeed.
And so this is the starting point, this is the launching point for that. But there is a lot of work that we need to do, and we're starting today.
Wow. So you actually have a blueprint for this.
Oh yeah, definitely.
So you're like, okay, we're starting with the mothers and sons, we're moving on to the fathers and sons, and we're just going to keep working on building that core. I like that. I mean, you're like a personal trainer right now. You know? Going to my plank position, you know, on that core. Tell us some other ideas that you've been thinking about to kind of change it, because I know you got mothers and sons, you got fathers and sons. There's a lot of dynamics that comes from our community that we tend to miss when it comes to resources. What are the things you're thinking about coming here at the Fort?
Well, even going into even the mother-daughter relationship and the mother-father relationship, a lot of things are going on even with teen pregnancies and things like that, because there has not been a proper training on how women should be treated or valued, and so they end up in positions because they feel valued, and then they end up getting pregnant early. So it's like a lot of things, even from that seat, need to be talked about.
Indeed.
And so even going beyond that, we have a lot of partnerships with a lot of community organizations from around here, even churches. And so how does faith play a part into our community dynamic? Yeah, back in the 50s and 60s, it was the pillar of the community. So you had schools and you had churches.
That's right.
The pillars of the community.
That's right.
And so now we have churches who have become disengaged with the community. And so now there's a struggle because the churches now, a lot of communities, churches have big budgets and things like that, and are not doing anything for the community. So how can we re-engage the church into the school, into the community, so that everyone benefits from that relationship, not just the church and then not just the school? How can we all not just impact just this area of the city, but how can we impact the entire city? We have the resources, we have the connection, but it's about working together. And that's what made the communities back in the 50s, the 60s, and 70s so strong in the African American community, because they worked together. But I believe part of the dynamic of why things are broken down so much is because we're working in silos.
Indeed.
Right.
So the church has their programs, their community.
Right.
We have our community.
Right.
But just imagine what we can do together.
These communities aren't working together.
I think there's also it's also important, and I want to get your take on this as a part of your strategic plan. Thinking about accountability for the businesses that operate in our communities, right? Mm-hmm. If we're going to be your patrons,
yep.
and I'm going to your beauty supply store,
mm-hmm.
you know,
mm-hmm.
or you're housing me, you're a public housing agency,
yep.
or you're a small business restaurant owner. If African Americans, Black Americans are going to be your patrons, what is the accountability on the businesses that are here that are making money off of our community, but that aren't reinvesting that money? Have you thought about that? Have you thought about how you can create relationships with other types of entities that essentially shape the community and have a major impact on the lives of the children?
They don't necessarily give back.
But they'll give back.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, so part of my initiative here at the school is not only to build those relationships with the churches, but also with the businesses. So I've already had meetings with a lot of businesses, even around this community, on what can they bring to the community, not just take from it.
Exactly.
And so we have Baltimore Housing here as well, talking through, okay, how can, because I understand the dynamics of the city, we all do, that, it's being reshaped, restructured, and we're kind of being pushed out, right? So how can even Baltimore Housing Authority reinvest in this community outside of bringing investors in?
Exactly.
So having first-time home buyers programs, having things like that inside of the school for the community, so because the majority, it's like, not the majority, but 50% of this community is renting, the other 50% are homeowners, right? Yeah. So how can we get those renters to become homeowners? Easiest way is to empower them, because a lot of them have full-time jobs. They just don't know how easy it is to get these grant funds that the city has, but they don't necessarily publicize a lot to our community.
Resources is what we talked about earlier.
So, I mean, we're talking about, just in terms of that situation, you have different grant programs where a lot of families can only bring $1,000 to the table to buy a house. But if you're talking about they can qualify for $15,000 to $20,000 of grants that will cover all the summer and down payment, they can become homeowners because they already have good credit. So it's empowering people to become better. And empowering, make sure that the businesses are also doing their part to empower the community. So when those programs do come up, it's all about sponsorships.
Right.
Okay, this is what you're getting from us, but now what can we get from you? And having that strategic conversation with them to make sure that they're reinvesting in us. Because if not, we can go other places.
Exactly.
We have options.
We have options. Our money elsewhere.
But I think that's the thing is they've gotten our community to the point where this is the only place I can go.
We've become different siloed communities, desert communities.
Desert
communities where you have one this and one that and maybe nothing of something you actually need, no grocery store, whatever, etc. Becoming desert communities. Talk to us about like what success looks like regarding this event. When you walking away and saying like this was a great event, describe the success for this particular mother and sons event and some of the themes that you would like people to walk away with, or what you would like participants to have learned today.
Well, I think one of the biggest things for me in terms of the relationship between child and parent is understanding, at least from the parental perspective, that parenting is different than it was 10, 15, even 5 years ago. And so for the parent to understand the child's perspective in terms of this generation being the Y generation, meaning not just age, but they ask the question, why?
So, like, I know when I grew up, do as I say, not as I do.
And you shut up.
And you shut up. There was no why.
There was no why.
There was no why.
There was no why. But to this generation, they ask the question,
and they have no
why?
fear about why, asking it,
But it's not it's not in the space of disrespect. But the interpretation from a lot of parents is that them asking why is being disrespectful. So
they never would have done it.
Because they never would have done it. So getting in a space such as the summit to have those courageous conversations with the parents to say, you know what, they're not being disrespectful. They just want to know why. It's going to help better relationships. Because I know with my parents, even getting that understanding, like, I'm not being disrespectful. They're like, how did we get to this point? Because for me, like, wait a minute, I don't understand why we're doing this, the way we're doing it. And then that understanding can then deepen relationships between sons and mothers. And a lot of frustration that mothers have is because they might feel that the son is not listening to them.
Or obeying.
Or obeying them. But it's a lot of, I would say, just a lot of misconceptions and signals being missed from both sides. So from my seat, success means that we're now starting to connect instead of miss. And this is, of course, the building blocks to it's going to be something greater. So I was telling Rachel, I can see her going around the city hosting this summit and hosting other summits for daughters and fathers and the whole family. You know, so yeah, I'm sorry.
Well, I was just going to say, you touched on about that communication dynamic. This is what I heard. And I think that as you talked about strengthening the family, that's a big part of it, because any team, any unit, any organization have to be aligned with their vision. And so when the children are asking those questions, it's not to be disrespectful, like you said, but we all have to align on the same vision. So now we know why mom does this and why dad does that. We know why this is going on. So now we as the children, as we grow, we understand that bond of family, and we say, look, we all in this together, so this is what we do, and this is how we operate, as opposed to having separate entities where, oh, well, now you're 18, get out and
get out.
We had a show about that.
And just to piggyback on it, this is what I had to learn. I think, you know, within my family, as becoming an adult, now it's like I can talk to my parents and give them advice or, you know, about what's going on in the world today. Whereas in a lot of family homes, they don't always have that because that communication is broken. So there's, you know, we got a lot of issues that's going on, and so when you have to go to those deeper conversations about family dynamics, we can't, because we always think it's a disrespect if you ask them about this or ask them about that. So
I think even to piggyback off of that, it's like, how do we get to a place where we understand that the parental voice changes? Because in our tradition, you know, what grandmother said always went, no matter what age. But with our generation, yes, the parent can tell us what to do as I say, but then at a certain age, typically around 18 to 21, that parent's role becomes as an advisor.
Yes.
Versus authoritative figure. Like, how can we educate our parents that to help make that transition? Because now we have a lot of our children going to college, having different experiences, and parents don't know how to make that transition and the parental voice.
And especially if they haven't been in those experiences themselves.
And so there's a lot of first time. We're still in a generation of a lot of first time college students, and so it's not a thing of now they know more because they're coming back, because the experiences are different. But how can we empower mothers and even fathers to be empowered and not threatened?
Exactly.
I'm a mother. I have two. I have a son, Landon, and a daughter named Logan, and they're going to be happy that I've shouted them out. Landon and Logan. I feel like they're watching me, and I love both of them. And my son is 9, and my daughter is 5. But to your point about the parental voice changing over time, and how do we have the courageous conversation? I like that. I'm going to use that later.
We're going to hashtag.
Courageous conversations. I like that. But how do we have these conversations? Basically saying to parents, like, you're going to have to accept that your kid is getting older and your position in their life is going to change. And I will say that as a mother of a son, I would like to think that I'm trying to build a relationship with my son where we can make that transition smoothly by having a friendship. My son and I have dates without my daughter. And our dates are like, let's go sit and talk about the new movie that came out, because he and I are both really into science and technology and comic books. Maybe it's about finding that level of connection between you and your child that's not strictly genetic, that has something else to do, so that when the time comes, you're ready to have those other conversations. You guys have things in common that you can enjoy together as friends. And then, like you said, it becomes more of an advisor-advisee, a mentor-mentee relationship, because over time, you've developed a friendship with that person. You've developed interest outside of just
the parent
and, you know, being bossy and da-da-da-da. Like, my son went and saw Black Panther, and he texted me like, oh my gosh, Mom, it was so good, this happened, that happened. Like, that's the relationship that I'm trying to build with my own kids. And so I would recommend to other mothers just thinking about, yes, this is my child, and yes, that's my job to rear them. This is also an individual, a uniquely made being in God's image. And I have to treat them as such. They are not my mini-me. They are not my clone. They're going to have their own opinions. They're going to have their own thoughts. And one day they're going to leave me, and I better have something to do when they're gone. And they cannot be my whole world. But, you know, what you were saying makes complete sense. It makes me think about all the time when I went away to college. My mother called me every day. She was depressed, and she was like, I miss you. And I was like, girl, like, it's going to be okay. I'll see you next weekend. She did not know how to let go. She and I have a better relationship now, but both of you make a great point.
But I think even still to your point, it's about finding that fine line, because I think oftentimes, and this is where there's been a huge difference in generations in terms of parenting, where you have the one parent that says, we're going to rear you 100%. I'm not your friend. I'm your parent. And then you have the flip side of that, where
they're too friendly.
They're too friendly. Common.
We
boys.
Like I told my son, I was joking, but I wasn't playing.
So we have to get to a point where there's a balance to where that child knows your place.
Knows the place, yes.
But also, we are also investing in our children and knowing and trying to get to know them for who they are.
Exactly.
And what they like.
Exactly.
What their passions are. And really tap into that, because then in the end, that's our job as parents, is to rear them, find their niche, and then cultivate their niche.
Now, I'm glad you said that, because there are so many times, like, I know when we were coming up, you go be a doctor, lawyer, business. And there are so many different things in between. And you said that. I mean, like, I remember going to career fairs where, knowing what I know now, I would have had a completely different path. Completely. I didn't know, you know, certain things were even open to me, because it was always lawyer, doctor, business. All right. I guess I got to pick three out of those three. Which one? You're right. So when you start talking about resources and bringing in different workforce development, or even opening up to, okay, did you even know this was a career?
Exactly.
You know, that's what I'm loving about what we're seeing. Just because we didn't have that. We didn't see that. We had to figure that out on our own, and I'm almost 40-ish. You know? But there's still different things that I'm like, I didn't know that existed.
I mean, it's just a thing of opening the perspective, opening the vantage point of our children and even our adults. So where, like you said, having career fairs where we can have nurse practitioners and people like that come in who might have thought all they could do was be a doctor. But you could be a nurse practitioner and do a lot of the same type of work, but you never would have known that. You know what I mean? And even like when I was coming up, it's about you know, my parents would say, okay, what are you good at? I was like, you know, I like the business. So I first majored in finance when I went to college. That didn't work out because I didn't like all those numbers. You know what I'm saying?
That didn't work
And they want me to be
like
accounting. I was like, So I ended up getting a degree in business, just a generic degree, but then I had to find what I wanted to do, what my passion was, right? Because I think that's the biggest thing that I'm trying to make sure that we do with this generation is find the passion, because the passion will fuel your career.
And the fire in you.
And the fire.
Passion fuels innovation, and Disraeli says the greatest good that you can do for someone is not give them your riches, but reveal to them their own. Because that's power. That's knowledge. It's knowing what you are, knowing what you bring to society. And then capitalizing on that.
Definitely.
Hey, Justin, I want to thank you very much for allowing us, you know, sitting down with us and picking your brain, and we're going to have to do this again. When we do another show, we're going to bring it back.
We're going to bring it back.
And I got a couple of clients that actually want to talk to you that are in the home buying process, and you actually help folks and talking about what you're talking about.
Yeah.
So we're going to talk offline. Yeah, I didn't forget about you. I will mention him to you if you're watching this. But thank you very much, folks. We appreciate it, man. Thank you very much.
My
Facebook
pleasure.
Live will be back in a few with our next interviewer, okay? Thank you again.
All right.
It's good.
Thank you.
Yeah. Awesome.